In the world of chess, the legendary Garry Kasparov, who held the title of world champion for over 2 decades with an impressive rating of 28.56, is confronted by a mysterious opponent known as Rey Enigma. Despite the secrecy surrounding Rey's identity, they have achieved a remarkable feat by tying with Kasparov's formidable rival, Anatoly Karpov. Now, the stage is set for a thrilling showdown as Kasparov strives not only for victory, but also to safeguard his illustrious legacy. As we delve into this intriguing chess battle, the chess world is abuzz with excitement and anticipation. As the chess match began, Rey made the first move by advancing their pawn to d4. In response, Garry quickly played his knight to f6. It seemed like Garry might use his famous King's Indian defense strategy, a strong move in his playbook. But as the game continued, it became clear that they were heading down a different path. With Rey's second move, they placed their knight on f3 and then pushed the pawn to d4. This led to a symmetrical variation of the queen's pawn opening. In this situation, both players needed to be precise and use their strategic skills. The balance of power in the game was hanging in the balance. Then came a critical moment in the game with Garry's move, bishop f5. This move offered Rey an interesting choice. He had to decide whether to trade bishops right away, which could weaken black's pawn structure, but also expose the e4 square as a potential weakness. This decision had the power to shape the entire game, adding more suspense to their already intense battle of wits. However, Rey surprised everyone by not exchanging bishops immediately. Instead, he quickly castled, keeping the pieces on the board. This surprising move set the stage for a complex and dynamic game. Both players would now rely on their strategic skills and tactical thinking to gain an advantage in this intriguing match. In the early stages, Rey played it safe by moving his knight to d2, protecting the vulnerable e4 square. Garry responded by moving his knight to d7, a defensive move to guard against potential threats via e5. Rey then placed his queen on e2, while Garry boldly positioned his knight on e4, gaining control over white's side of the board. The game took an interesting turn when Rey made an unconventional move by advancing his pawn to b3. This unexpected move made Garry raise an eyebrow, and the game continued with both players making their moves. Eventually, Rey decided to capture one of Garry's pieces by taking the pawn on a4 with his bishop. Unfortunately for Rey, this turned out to be a significant mistake. Instead of retreating the bishop, he chose a daring path by moving his knight to e5, even though it meant sacrificing a pawn. This decision set the stage for a dynamic mid-game, where both players needed to use their tactical skills and creativity to gain an advantage. White uses the knight on c4 to remove black's queen and make a move into d6 appear imminent. Garry then unleashes b5, effectively compelling white to play knight d6. White is forced to exchange his knight for black's bishop after the rook d8. Rey then plays queen h5 with the intention of troublemaking black's king. White's strategy to play queen g5 and set up potential mating scenarios with the h-pawn becomes clear after queen e5. After trading a pair of rooks, black may now have a weakness in the d5 pawn. White's pawns on the queen side are under strain after moves h6 and rook c8. In order to safeguard the c2 pawn, Rey has no choice but to return with his queen. Rey replies with rook d4 after Garry plays a 6 to defend the b5 pawn. In response, Garry chooses the best move for the situation, 4, which destroys white's pawn chain. In a crucial moment of the game, Garry Kasparov took a risky move with queen g3, aiming for the exposed h4 piece in Rey's area. This ostensibly bold action, however, proved to be a major oversight. Rey cleverly replied with h5, making use of a strong battery on the d-file. Black's situation got dangerous as the potential loss of a pawn loomed large. Recognizing the gravity of his error, Garry visibly expressed his frustration, shaking his head as he contemplated his next move. With a tactical adjustment, he chose to play rook d8, strategically placing his rook in a position that baited Rey into capturing the d5 pawn, leaving the e3 pawn exposed. However, there was a critical move that could have revived Rey's chances. It was rook e4, a move that would have allowed Rey to capture black's rook while delivering a check, potentially turning the tide of the match. The stage was set for a pivotal moment in their contest, where each move carried the weight of victory or defeat. Regrettably, as time grew scarce, Rey found himself making a move of desperation. Ce4, a choice that placed him in dire straits once more. With the subsequent exchange of pawns, Garry seized the initiative with rook b8, introducing a menacing threat on the back rank. Undeterred, Rey attempted to halt black's advance by playing queen c1, aiming to prevent any further encroachment onto the first rank. Nevertheless, Garry, with unwavering determination, carried on by playing rook b1, a move that forced Rey to capture the rook. This seemingly innocuous move set the stage for a cunning maneuver as the queen swooped in to capture on e3, executing a devastating fork that left Rey in a precarious position. The tension in their showdown continued to mount as each player sought to outmaneuver the other in this thrilling endgame. In a critical move, white decides to check with their bishop on b8, also targeting the f7 pawn. However, this decision inadvertently grants Garry the opportunity to create two connected passed pawns, an immensely advantageous position in the endgame. Garry plays queen d6, positioning himself to advance his pawns towards a potential victory. Rey's last hope lies in forcing a perpetual check, which would result in yet another draw against the former world champion. With only a few seconds remaining on the clock, Rey makes a swift move with queen f5. However, the checks eventually come to an end, allowing black to commence the relentless push of their pawns toward potential triumph. This pivotal moment in the game carries high stakes and intense strategy as both players vie for control. In an intense endgame, white successfully captured Garry's pawn on a5, briefly gaining an advantage. However, the unstoppable progress of black's pawns, especially move e2, set the stage for a thrilling turn of events. Rey had no choice but to move his queen to the first rank, while Garry continued to advance his pawns, notably with d2, getting ready to promote it to a queen. Both players eventually crowned their armies with queens, and the once vulnerable black king found solid protection. This exciting climax turned the chessboard into a battlefield of strategy and determination, keeping onlookers on the edge of their seats during this captivating endgame showdown. As the chess game was reaching its end, Rey found themselves in a tough spot with no good moves left. The chess clock showed that time was running out quickly. Meanwhile, Garry's pawns were getting very close to winning the game by putting Rey's king in checkmate. It was a critical moment, and Rey had to think hard to find a way out of this difficult situation. In a mix of emotions, Rey's time ran out before he could formally acknowledge defeat. It marked the end of a thrilling battle that had gripped the chess world's attention. Despite their fierce rivalry on the board, both players exchanged a handshake as a gesture of respect. This win reaffirmed Garry Kasparov's status as the ultimate chess master, solidifying his position as the unrivaled champion of the chess world.